Hi, I'm Millard Crow, aka Crow SpaceBoy. I am a journalist, artist, and author of the new theological thriller, The Next Great Deity. And you are listening to Hawaii's #1 podcast, The Mekel Kasanova Show.
All right, and welcome everyone to another episode of Hawaii's #1 podcast, the #1 rated podcast in the state of Hawaii, the Kasanova podcast. I'm your host, Mekel Kasanova, and I'm coming at you with another phenomenal interview. And this time, it's going to be with the man known as Millard Crow. He is Shoryuken.com's Crow SpaceBoy. He's an author, he's a journalist, he's a podcaster, he's a Twitch affiliate, he's with the FGC, he's an FGC commentator. He's had 2 top 16s with Tekken 7 and Pokken Tournament at majors, and there's so much more that he's done. He's an accomplished published author. It's such a phenomenal time having him on the show, and we jump into a lot of various topics from the FGC to IT to just about any and everything. I mean, we're going to dive head in, so if you're ready to do it, I'm ready to do it. Let's go ahead and welcome Millard Crow onto the Kasanova podcast. All right, and welcome everyone to another episode of Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Kasanova podcast. I'm your host, Mekel Kasanova, and I have with me the one, the only, the man known as Crow SpaceBoy, aka Millard Crow. Man, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, sir. How's it going?
Going good, man. Go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell people where they can find you, some upcoming projects that you have in the works, and you're very solid. Let's plug them.
And I do have some upcoming projects, listener. I'm Millard Crow, aka Crow SpaceBoy. I am a journalist, streamer, artist, and most importantly, author of the upcoming theological thriller, The Next Great Deity. I'm going to hold it up, but it's going to be mirrored. I couldn't figure out how to do the camera mirroring flip in time, but I've said my name and you can read, so you can read this book. That's all. I believe in you. It's on Amazon. It's on Bookshelf. It's on a million websites internationally right now for pre-order. It is released on June 3rd. Outside of that, you probably primarily know me for fighting game stuff. I did top 8 casting for DreamHack Austin 2 years in a row, one for Pokken Tournament, one for the Tekken 7 Tekken World Tour. And outside of that, I mash in fighting games like everyone else.
Awesome, man. Like, I'm excited for your book. I'm glad you plugged that at the beginning because, man, that's an amazing thing. Like, becoming an author, like just putting out your first book. Like, how does that feel?
Ridiculous and amazing and terrifying. Those 3 emotions bundled into one gelatinous cube in my chest at all times. It's been a lifelong dream of mine, and I, like so many other avenues in life, it was one of those things I didn't think I'd ever be able to do, and then I just started doing it, and then it happened. And if there's any like singular piece of advice I can give anyone that wants to do anything, whether it be casting at some tournament or putting out a book with your name on it, you do it until you get there. There's no you don't have a certain number of credits you got to put in to get there. You just do it. You'll get there eventually.
And I feel like that's amazing advice that you can really apply to just about anything. I have a lot of people that always ask me like, oh, how do you do a podcast? How do you be able to interview people? How do you get to do this or do reviews? 'Cause I do journalistic reviews for video games too. And I tell people there's no set path. And for whatever reason, they think that there is a set path. I'm like, there's not. You literally write the book as you go.
Yeah. So I did SRK, and I mean still technically with SRK, although I've taken some time off to pursue this book. But I
Hmm.
was working really heavily for SRK for 2 years. There was a very good chance that if you looked at the site, you probably saw three or four things with my face on it. And during that time, at some point, I looked at the amount of things that I had posted, and I realized if I take it was like the last time I counted, it was like over 1,500 articles and 100 words an article, which I definitely is like a below what it actually is. I'm just guesstimating 100 words, but that's a book. I could have written a book that whole time, and when that sunk in, I said, "Well, why don't I?" And
Hmm.
this idea has been something that I've had in my head bouncing around for a couple of years, and I retooled it and I put it out there. And the I'm still like 3 months away from release, but I'm already in top 10 of pre-orders for absurdist fiction, which is the genre that I was aiming for. And I would like to see that number climb up. Hint, hint, listener. Um, but I'm very happy with the way everything is going thus far. Yeah.
Amazing, man. Amazing. I'm happy for you, man. Top 10.
Absurdist
Wow.
fiction. I mean, I guess maybe there aren't that many absurdist fiction writers out there. I don't know. I'll still fight them until I get number one. I'm in the FTC. I know to never give up.
Well, man, again, congratulations on that. And I mean, I don't even have to wish you success on this journey. You're already experiencing it. You're in the top five. Like that's dude, inspirational.
I'm gonna keep going, and I always told myself like it doesn't matter what happens with the book. I mean, this book could come out, and I spoiler, I don't actually want this to happen, but just in case it does, if I end up being like the room of fiction, I'll take it on the chin and I'll write the next book. I already have two other books that I'm writing right now. I guess this is some advice for anyone that does actually intend to self-publish in some way. You have to buy ISBNs in a packet. You're not going to buy 10 ISBNs and put out one book unless you intend to release it in 10 different ways. So just keep writing. Just keep doing it. They're going to get used somehow. You're not going to buy them and just let them sit around.
Well, I mean, even let's dive into that, man. So, like, the process of writing a book and then going to publishing and getting it on like Amazon and physical copies of it, like, what is that process like? Because you're the first, well, you're not the first author I've had on, but you're the first one that I'm going to really just dive into, like, how this process works. Like, let's go.
All right. Well, so I'm self-publishing, and there is a pretty significant difference between self-publishing and traditional publishing. And the difference is 99% money. If you go through the
Mhm.
traditional publishing route, most of what is done for you, most of the stuff for the book is done for you. You don't really do anything as far as advertising. You don't really do anything as far as editing. You don't really do anything as far as like cover design for your book. Whereas if you self-publish, this is my cover that I had commissioned, and I actually designed this cover as well. The
Cool.
back of the cover, this was the original art by the amazing artist Vincent Rogers, and I took the assets from this and I made this side. And that was easy for me because I started out as a visual artist anyway. So I already had that toolkit in my back pocket. Not everyone's going to start out with that, especially if writing is your only thing. I understand that. Other artists are going to be more than happy to help you with that. But yeah, like I did the book cover. I luckily, because I've been working at SRK for 2 years, I had the background that allowed me to do the editing. I've read this book so many times that like I could probably recite it to you, and that's still not enough. Like when you go to make your own book, you need to read it until you are bleeding. That is the only way it's going. It's 75,000 words or 70, yeah, that's sorry, numbers are hard, that's why I'm a writer. Yeah, uh, 75,000 words, and just by statistical purposes alone, you're going to miss something the first, second, third, fourth read through, and you just have to keep doing it until it's as good as it can. And if you really want to feel good about yourself, just go to Google and type in famous uh, books like with errors in them. There are so many books that by name that they have some real problems in them, and that made me feel like I can do anything.
Oh man, that's amazing. So like with the process of like how's the process of doing like the ISBN? Like walk us through that.
Oh my god, that's so. We're starting to venture into territory where we're talking about politics. Believe it or not, you probably didn't expect that swerve, but
Whoa.
there's a company called Boker. I think it's Boker. Maybe I don't remember off the top of my head. They're mostly irrelevant, aside from the fact that they have a monopoly on the industry of ISBN. So an ISBN is not it's not a government number. You might
Hmm.
think it is when you look at it. It seems extremely official. It is one company that tracks uh, book sales, and the book industry is just like, sure, you can be the one company that does it. So they have a monopoly. They can charge whatever they want. You go to them and you give your money to them, and get used to me saying you give your money to them, because if you intend to self-publish, that is what you're going to be doing a lot for every facet of the book. The book trailer that I made, the art that's on this, the ISBNs. I have bled so much money for this thing. And the only reason I was able to do it is because while working at SRK, I have like multiple streams of revenue. If you are someone that uh, is maybe in a tough financial situation right now, write the book first in your spare time, and then like don't do anything that costs money until you are able to. That's like my best advice, because it will become a money sink, and it like chips away at you. Like there's going to be a lot of little things that you're like, well crap, I didn't know I need a barcode for this. Oh, I didn't know I
Hmm.
needed another ISBN for my ebook, because the ebook is technically a different ISBN than the hardcover. Like you're just gonna keep running into little things like that over and over again until you cry. And I have cried over this book multiple times, but you have to do it. You have no choice. Not if you don't want to see it on the shelf.
Oh wow, man, that's insane. Holy crap.
But I wouldn't have it any other way, because like it really is a dream of mine, and that's how I felt about writing for SRK too. Is like I love writing. It's something I've done my whole life, and it's come so naturally to me that I was kind of an idiot and didn't realize that I was writing the whole time. So you see
Hmm.
the fucking 3D Grackle picture just over this shoulder here. I was a visual artist for a large part of my life. Those canvases over there are also mine, and I dilly dallied in little local art galleries and stuff like that, and that was cool and all, but it wasn't. I was never as good at that in my personal judgment as I was
Hmm.
at writing. I didn't see writing as something that was within my grasp, and like I believe I mentioned before, like if you don't think something is within your grasp, you probably just haven't done it enough. That's
Hmm.
pure and simple. And for fighting game listeners, because I know that there's going to be a few people that are tuning in who just know me for my what I've done in the fighting game community, you're going to know that fighting games are the exact same way. Technical skill. You're not just born Daigo. You're not just born Justin Wong. Justin Wong wasn't even just born with the skills that he had. He had to go as a kid and get his butt kicked in Chinatown over and over again until he became the one that was beating everybody. And that's the way it is for everything in life. Maybe I'm simplifying things, but fighting games have taught me a whole lot about the how will carry you so far beyond anything else.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And you know, I I want to ask you how you got into SRK because I know before we went and started recording, you know, before we went live, like we were actually talking about like IT because we're, you know, we both have backgrounds in IT. You've been in it longer than I have, and it's fun. Like I want to know like how did you leave IT to go into SRK, or are you still like, you know, simultaneously doing both?
No, I did quit IT because I wanted to pursue writing for a living. I like that. That was my dream. And I mean, I guess I'm also doing like gaming and stuff. I am a Twitch affiliate and I stream like almost every single night. But
Hmm.
uh, like the IT was misery for me. I don't know too many people that go into IT that ends like this is where my heart is, or at least like I started out in a call center. Anyone that has lived in
Same
California
here.
or yeah, so you understand like it like no one goes into the call center. It's like this is what I love. I love getting yelled at on the phone every day. And I graduated. I went from call center to problem management. Problem management in the particular company that I was in just meant that a person in a nicer suit yelled at me
Hmm.
instead of people at the bottom of the food chain in that company. I'm trying very hard to avoid saying like what company I work for because I don't know if they're cool with me talking crap about it. It sucked. I hated it, but I did my job for a lot of years, and I felt like I was pretty good at it. But it was one of those things where happiness versus bank account. And I decided that it was time to switch the ratios, as it as far as how I got into SRK. um, like I said, I was an idiot about my own self and didn't realize that writing was this thing that I had been doing my whole life. As a kid, I had a like way back in the days of Windows NT, I think. Oh my God, I'm so old now that all
Oh.
the versions of Windows are blurring together in my head. And old Windows, the older one, I don't remember. Uh, I would like open up Excel and like make I would make like statistical sheets for like characters in a world that didn't exist. I would write down like notes for games that didn't exist. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just a dumb kid making dumb things. But that kept happening over and over again for the rest of my life. It just got more sophisticated as I kept doing it. And when I lived in Detroit a couple of years prior to moving down here to Austin, I had written. I'm I'm going to say what I'm about to say, and then I'm going to give you a caveat immediately afterwards.
Okay.
I wrote
Okay.
for free for um, this music like webzine in Toronto. Canada and Detroit are not far from each other, so it made sense at the time. And I wrote for free, but I got like CDs of the music that I was reviewing, so I did get
Hmm.
something resembling compensation. Here's the caveat: never work for free. Don't do it. You're worth something. Like it's I have a whole thing about like working for exposure and how it's bullshit, and I don't want to take up the entire podcast with it, but it is. And if you doubt that, go look at for exposure underscore txt on Twitter and just spend the next few hours laughing. You will appreciate it, I promise. But yeah, so really, like as far as a resume prior to SRK, I didn't have a lot. I had the fact that I was extremely good at Soul Calibur, and I had the fact that I wrote for this music website that people outside of Toronto had probably never heard of. And that's it. That's all I had. But they were like 2 years ago, SRK was like, hey, we're looking for writers. And I'm sitting there at my IT desk looking at SRK, looking at the world around me and saying, I have to try. I have to do it. So I did. And then they said, hey, we're moving you on to the next round. Fill out this questionnaire. And I said, that's crazy. I'm not making any further than this, probably. So I filled out the questionnaire. And then they invited me into the Discord chat until they had a job. And I said, no shit. How about that? So I worked I worked both for IT and SRK for a couple of months, just to try and balance out like how much was I earning at SRK versus what am I doing right now. Um,
Hmm.
Trying to figure out like is it feasible for me to quit IT and just pursue this? The answer was no. It wasn't. Even though even though SRK was extremely good to me and is largely responsible for most of the good stuff that has come my way thus far, it as a sole earnings, it wasn't enough. So I picked up some other side gigs, and I made SRK work for me and the life that I
Hmm.
live. I'm 5'4" and 120 pounds, so not a whole lot of energy needs to be consumed in this
What?
market.
I
So
would have assumed you're like 6'5". What are you talking about?
absolutely not. I am extremely short. I probably fit in people's pockets, but it's okay because I'm the best at hide and seek. Um, but yeah, I figured out a way to make it work for me. And if you're going to do some sort of gig adventure like that, which is increasingly becoming a reality for a lot of people in our awful, awful economy, then I do recommend that you diversify your income streams because you won't survive otherwise if your single stream goes down.
Yeah, I fully agree with you on that. Like currently, I work as an IT analyst. I'm not going to say the company I work for, the field. It's the medical field, but I'm an IT analyst, and it's funny because I kind of fell into IT. Like I have no background in it, and
Me
I
too.
was, like it's so funny because like I was working for Microsoft for years as like a trainer, and out here in Hawaii we opened the first Microsoft store, and I was part of that process, and a couple years in, and then I quit and started working at micro. Well, no, where did I go? I went to Apple from Microsoft to Apple. Apple's cool, but then they started cutting hours. I was like, man, I'm tired of this retail shit. Like, I want to make some money. And one of my friends was like, you're good at, figuring stuff out. You're really hands on. Go into IT and make a lot of money. And 5 years later, 6 years later, I'm in it. I'm like, yeah, I'm making good money. But the thing is, IT consumes your life. Like trying to do anything outside of it is almost unthinkable. Like it's
The IT industry, I feel like, is where a lot of menial jobs are slowly heading. My first IT job, which I didn't stay at for very long for a wide variety of reasons, but the one of the most lingering impressions I had from it was that sitting directly across from me was a grandfather in his 70s that did not know how to control C. So, I mean, he made it in to IT, and it really made me wonder why I didn't pursue it sooner. Because I was like you, I didn't have a background in it. I just grew up in the generation that had computers appear in their house.
yeah.
Like, so it was kind of the thing that helped raise me. and and just like, yeah, I had this wrong impression that you had to have like the super college degree in order to get into IT.
And you don't.
No, no, you gotta show up on time, and that's about it.
Oh man, but yeah, like as far as like journalism, man, like how since we're both in journalism, like isn't it crazy when you look at it? Like when we were coming up, which I assume we were around the same age, but isn't it crazy? Like back then, you'd read the gaming magazines or magazines in general, and you're like, I would love to do that, but you have no idea how to get into it. And now it's as easy as making a blog or, you know, putting up a post, or it's so accessible now
One
to
one of
be
the
a
most
journalist.
Mhm. One of the most lingering effects of the internet is that it kinda made everyone an amateur writer to in some way, shape, or form. I say that as someone that has spent a very large part of his life as an amateur writer. It's not an insult, it is a reality, like, we've grown up texting and communicating with each other. Had to im we've all had to filter the English language in some way to survive in this new world that we live in, so like I feel like in the process we just have lots of more people that are creating content in a wide variety of different avenues. I mean, like that's the same reason why you have a million people doing reacts on YouTube and stuff like that. Like it's a new marketplace that didn't exist before, and everyone's vocabulary in that particular subgenre is getting better because of it. Like if we are all better at the things that we take for granted now because we are taking it for granted. Go back and look at like any YouTube video from 2006, and it's amazing how things have changed since then.
Oh man, it's so true. It really is. Yeah. So when it comes to journalism,
Mhm.
what are like walk us through like a when you're writing an article, like what is the process for you? Like what are the stresses? What are the fun parts? What are the menino parts? Like just walk us through it, like a typical day for you.
So for SRK, one of the best things that I can say about SRK is that I had really significant freedom about what I was allowed to write for, and we have a what I would like to think is a pretty narrow focus, which is the fighting game community. If it's a fighting game, we should probably be covering it in some way, shape, or form. And my whole life as a person that is really interested in Namco games, I have always felt like Namco games up until Tekken 7. Keep in mind, I was hired like before Tekken 7 was out on consoles. Um, I had always felt I had a chip on my shoulder. I'm not proud. I'll tell you the truth. I had a chip on my shoulder about the fact that Namco games were always considered second rate to Capcom, and just in the fighting game community specifically. I'm not speaking about sales or anything like that. Just
No,
like
but it's true. It's true. It
yeah,
is. Yeah.
Street Fighter always had the limelight. It didn't matter what Street Fighter did. It didn't matter how good or bad the new Street Fighter game was. It was always going to get more attention than anything that any other company did. And I don't know about you, but like I like games. I don't like Street Fighter individually as a monolith. Like I like the fighting game genre as a whole. So
I'm the
I
same.
want so I want to know more about as many different fighting games as I can find out. I don't care if it's good or bad. I just want to find the interesting things about it that will both affect me and like enrich my knowledge about the genre. And I felt like that there wasn't a whole lot out there at the time that I started. So when I applied, I this may have been one of the reasons why I got hired. But I was like, look, I know I bleed Soul Calibur frame data if you cut me. I know a whole heck of a lot about a wide variety of games. I can probably talk your ear off about Kinnikuman Muscle Grand Prix, a game that never even came out in the United States, that I probably shouldn't have that information on, but I have an emulator right over here and I'm going to play it because the game's amazing. And and I that was basically my thought process anytime that I pursued something was like, I'm going to find someone that has put something out there that's really weird and interesting that I can promote, or I'm going to find a topic that interests me that I don't think people are talking about enough. Sometimes that worked really well for me. Sometimes I got to promote really cool and bizarre things. One of my, I think the my proudest thing that I've ever promoted, as far as just like writing about other people's work at SRK, is the Mikado tournaments in Japan. Mikado Arcade is basically Nirvana for fighting game players. If you go there, it's just nothing but wall to wall arcades or arcade titles from yesteryear, like really bizarre out there things like Kinnikuman, for example. And they run tournaments for all of these games, all of them. And you can tune into Mikado's YouTube channel and find the four people that know how to play high level Kinnikuman. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. Like you're finding really, really high level ways of thinking about these games that you wouldn't find anywhere else. And that was always what I wanted to do, was broaden the horizon of what fighting games were covered, just out there, period.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And I gotta ask this. Like, how did you find out about like me and my interviews? Because it's like next thing I know, everyone like in Hawaii, like in our FGC scene, VGH 808 out here, they're like, Mekel, you're on SRK. And I was like, what? Your interview. Then I turned around, I was like, holy crap. How did you like? Yeah, like I think the first one was Mike DeBonis. So I was
Uh,
like, what?
can we let Crow Space Boy keep some of his secrets? Can I can I
Go
have
for it. Go
can I have
for
some of my
it.
secrets of the trade? I just like I feel like I grew up on the internet and I'm extremely good at googling things. What can I say? Like I I especially when I was working at SRK, I was kind of feverishly trying to find like just anything that wasn't standard, anything that needed to be covered that I felt like wasn't getting enough coverage. Um, Also, I mean, I was getting paid for it, so I need I need to put some food on the table.
Oh man, awesome, awesome. So let's dive into it, man. Like how what are some of your favorite fighting games or just games in general? Like what got you into gaming and just passionate about gaming?
And here's where we lose the next 5 hours of our lives. So, unlike a lot of people of my generation, I did not grow up with a gaming console in my house, and that is because I had extremely religious parents that didn't want me to do anything outside of praise Jesus and watch football. So, my interactions with gaming was always, like, at a friend's house or something like that. And senior year of high school,
Mhm,
2002, I wanna say, a little game called Soul Calibur 2 comes out in the arcades, and it just so happens when that machine is being installed into our local Namco arcade over in Mobile, Alabama, I just happened to be at the mall that weekend with one of my friends, and we went over to the arcade, and another one of our high school friends had, frame data printed out. Now keep in mind,
mhm.
I didn't grow up with video games, and I definitely have never seen frame data before. So it's just like hieroglyphics. Like, what is this calculus you're reading through right now? You're at the arcade. You're not at school. You don't have to be looking through this. But it fascinated me, and like just watching the correlation between what was on the page and what was being done on the machine
Mhm,
instantly hooked me. And then I realized for a lot of people, the normal story is I played with my brother Street Fighter 2 on Super Nintendo, something like that. Um, that wasn't it for me. It was literally understanding that the frame data was a static thing on a sheet of paper being represented on that screen. And something clicked in me that said, you can study that and be really good at that. And the frame data that he had, what he had two characters. He had Killick and he had Junwa. And
mhm.
I I looked at Killick and I said that character's boring. I don't want to do it. And I don't know. I don't know. I clearly am a scrub because I thought Junwa was more interesting. That character is definitely not interesting at all. But I didn't know any better, so forgive me. And he gave me the Junwa frame data, and I studied it. I studied it like it was a fucking math test, and I beat all the kids at the arcade, and there was one I'm never gonna forget this for as long as I live. There was this older guy, and it's so weird to call him that now because I'm probably his age when then. But he was a dude in a suit that worked in the mall, and he just picked Ivy, and he would just do all the long. He didn't know what he was doing. He just did like the long range stuff. He had like 5 moves, and none of the kids at the arcade could beat him. And I said, I can do it. If I just believe in myself, I know I can do it. And that was like my first. That was my first rival, the suit man at the at the mall. And yeah, and I just kind of kept growing from there, and eventually I found the FGC because, and isn't this the case for everyone? You beat all your neighborhood friends, and then the out of towner shows up and kicks your ass. Yeah, shout outs to Tab wherever you are. I miss you dearly, my friend. Tab came down from Auburn, Alabama, to kick my ass 6 ways a Sunday, and then just left and gave me soulcaliber.com as like his like receipt for the ass kicking. And I signed up. I signed up on the forums, and then I changed for the rest of my life. Sadly, soulcaliber.com is not a thing anymore. Forums kind of, the concept of forums as they were is not really a thing in general, but that is where a large part of my growing up was through those forums.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Man, so I was right in assuming we are from the same generation, same high school year.
Is it Soul Calibur 2? We're the Soul Calibur 2 generation. That's what gave it away. Yeah, that was the year that I graduated, and I mean, as a senior, you're not doing that much. So, especially me because I had like weird. I don't know if every high school does this or not. I only have my experiences, but we had credits kind of like the same way college does. They had to like meet certain requirements for individual credits. And just like the way the school kept screwing up this one credit thing for me, I ended up doing like all the credits that I needed for everything else except this one thing that I could never like get into that I kept signing up for. So my senior
Hmm.
year was just like a bunch of bullshit classes I did not care about, and then like the one class that I needed to graduate. So needless to say, had spare time on my hand, had a driver's license. It was very easy for me to cross the Bayway and go to Mobile.
Oh man. Okay, so I want to ask you about since you're also a professional esports commentator. You've commentated for DreamHack Austin twice, also for Absolute Battle 8. Like,
Mhm.
what has been like your experience being a professional commentator, and how did you get into, or how did you develop the style of play-by-play commentary?
Very carefully. And that is something where I don't think I'd ever been able to. I would have never been able to do something like that had it not been for, I think, two factors leading up to when I finally started actually doing it professionally. Was
Hmm.
number one, I Twitch when it was a novelty still. I signed up and I just streamed the Soul Calibur 5 back when it first came out. We just streamed like from our house, the local casual sessions, and it was terrible. It was very
Hmm.
bad, and I had like a fucking webcam mic on the other side of the room that I was just shouting at from the TV. But it's okay. We've all grown since then. Um, and but like that helped me loosen up a little bit because I'm by nature up until like the past couple of years I've always been just kind of a shy person, not really super gregarious. So how could I possibly be a commentator?
Hmm.
Turns out you do it by talking a lot. That's what you do. That's it. Um, and you keep doing it and you keep getting better. And there's a theme here that I'm trying to sink in. It goes to everything, writing, what have you. I guess the best advice I can give you about commentary, especially if you're doing in commentary with multiple people, is that you need to understand what your role is in on the
Hmm.
commentary team. So for DreamHack Austin, when I did Tekken 7, which I would say is like the biggest coup I've had to date, getting into to do that. I did it with Blue Fire 132, Alon, semi well known guy. He does a lot of the video editing for Cross Counter Flow. He won the Gauntlet, that Rooster Teeth show, which I'm sure he probably doesn't appreciate me saying, but he won it. He should be very proud. But he and I on Top 8 commentary, and he's he's not. I get really excited when cool shit happens, and I yell. That's just the way we do it in Detroit. And I and yeah, so I decided early on, like, look, I'll be color commentary. I do know frame data, and like, it was kind of weird because like I think I knew more about like the frame data aspect of Tekken 7 going into that, but Alon had like a better understanding of like the players that were specifically there for that event.
Hmm.
So we kind of balanced each other out in that regard. If you're going to be doing professional commentary, it definitely helps to kind of establish what your goal is going into the event. Not everyone's like that though. Some people just go in and they're guns ablazing, just like everything's off the cuff, and it helps to find out like what works for you. I mean, it also, I guess, it also helps that like I really like listening to people commentate. So I've picked up lots of different like ways of talking about a match. Like, how do I say this? Dogface is hilarious, and I want to be him. Like I'm like every single other person in the FGC. I saw him screaming at Third Strike, and I wanted to be as cool as that dude. I don't know where you are, Dogface, but please come back. Every game needs your commentary. Um, but like watching him, and also watching Ultra David, who I realize is kind of antithetical to everything I just described, but like both of those people really influenced me in the sense that I learned what it adds to a match, because it really does. Like, you can kill a match with you can kill a great game with bad commentary. You really can.
Yeah.
There's probably people in that chat room that thought I did that. But that's fine. I mean, you're always going to have something like that, and you just have to keep going and keep working on it.
Cool, man. And I also want to ask you, like, what do you feel like is what's your take on the current influence of esports and the professional future of the FGC?
Now, see, here's where I can get into trouble, because I work for SRK, and SRK is affiliated with Evo. And if I say something out of line, Mr. Wizard's fist is just going to come flying all the way across the country, hit me directly in the face.
Stay in your core values, man.
Yeah, I'll watch myself. So I think there's two ways to look at it. Number one, esports has helped elevate us to a much larger platform than ever before. We all have a better vocabulary for fighting games than we ever have before. The average player of a fighting game and the fighting game community is better than they ever have been in the history of fighting games. You cannot convince me otherwise. Like, random killers could show up out of nowhere from the middle of Iowa. That's me. I'm not trying to be mean to you, Iowa. That was just the first thing that came to my head. But like, just like everyone all over the place is better now because the internet makes it easy to be good at games, or easier to be good at games than it ever has been before. So because of that, I feel like there are really good benefits to the way esports has elevated our genre. We wouldn't have most of the games we have now if it wasn't for esports. There are people probably listening to the sound of my voice saying, good, we shouldn't have those games. I just want Street Fighter 2 for the rest of my life. You're not wrong. You're just living in a different world than me. That's all I'm saying. But I will entertain those people now with point number two, which is that there is something that's lost that I think is very special when you start getting into the corporatization of sport. Period. Like, I've always looked at it as a sport because it's two people going head to head trying to beat each other, and there is a winner at the end. So before esports was a term, it always was that to me. I didn't need Motorola to come in and tell me that I was verified as a member of the fighting game community. Like it was a sport to me because I decided it was, and that's the only definition that matters to the individual. I'm trying to be very careful and also very intelligent with how I say what I'm about to say. There are things that we lose when we give our identity over to corporations. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. I don't know how else to really say it other than that. So I guess, to speak more personally, I will just get it all out there. I'm a member of the LGBT community. The awareness of fighting games and the corporatization of it has in a way made it safer for me to go to a tournament, and for a lot of other people too. In the past, like, I spent a very long time in the closet because I didn't think that it well, first off, I didn't think it mattered for fighting games. That's kind of the beautiful thing of fighting games, is I can go kick someone's ass, and if they don't like it, that's too bad. What I do with my junk doesn't affect how bad I beat them in the game. But now, like, it does feel like it's safer for me to be open about who I am, which I don't think, because there's so many eyes on the sport now, I don't think that's something that could have been done before. But at the same time, are you gonna get you're not gonna get a Dark Prince versus Justin Wong, like, first to 10 for $10,000 or whatever it was anymore. Like, you're not gonna get that fire that those people had because they have so many eyes. They don't want to upset their corporate sponsors, and that's kind of pisses me off too. Like, what's the balance? I don't know. I don't want to die when I go to an FGC event, but I also want to see two dudes scream at each other over a video game. So I like that's the moral quandary that I have. and I guess that's going to be really the struggle that the fighting game community is going to have to deal with for the entirety of its existence, is how much does it want to sell out its identity to large corporations. And I'm just a dude that writes things. I can't control that. So if you have an opinion on it, just know that I support you. I can't do anything about it. I'm just a dude.
Well, one of the other questions I want to ask, since you are a member of the LGBTQ community, how do you feel it is like the community's acceptance within the FGC and esports in general? Do you feel like it's really good, or is there any issues that you've run into or seen so far?
It's contextual. And
Okay.
I hate to say this because it's 2019 and I would like to think as the human race we have evolved beyond some of our past mistakes, but we haven't. And maybe if you're in rural Alabama, maybe it's not the best to come out to the local FGC. I can say that. I was born and raised in Mobile, Alabama. Don't get mad at me, current people living in Mobile, Alabama. Um, but like the reason why I say that is because I came out when I was in Detroit, and there are people
Hmm.
that decided not to talk to me ever again because of that. That's just people being shitty. And you have two choices when that happens. You can either be sad about it, or you can realize that you are a better person than they are and just move on with your life. Now, luckily, when I moved to Austin, Texas, which is where I currently am, a city's just like it's a much friendlier place in general for a lot of different reasons. And B, just like I was able to, like, I already had it out there. It wasn't a secret anymore. It's definitely
Hmm.
not a secret now. Now that I've said on the Mekel Kasanova show, the number one podcast in Hawaii. Uh, but like being able to get like a fresh start in a city that is very loving and accepting was definitely nice. I still love Detroit, mind you. Minus the scumbags that aren't worth my time, that I don't have to see anymore. Detroit's a pretty cool place, and I miss my Michigan boys that helped me get as good at the fighting games as I eventually got.
Well, I think it's really unfortunate that there are so many closed-minded people, especially, I mean, we're in 2019.
Hmm.
Like, it's, I have this policy. I've always said it, like, people should be able to love who they love, be with whoever they want to, and there shouldn't be any type of, malice or ill will towards someone I mean, love is love. So
Well,
it's,
love is love, but I think there's something a little simpler than that, and it's just that we're meat bags with brains that get scared of anything and everything. So it's gonna
mhm.
be it's if the human race survives to 40-40, we're still gonna find something stupid to hate another person over. That's just the nature of our species. The only thing that we can do is keep whittling down that category until that we don't have anything like that anymore. It's like a pie in the sky sort of thing. I accept that. Probably won't see it in my lifetime, but I'm going to make sure that it's at least better by the time my life is done than it was when I started. And it already is. So cool. Great. I didn't have to do a whole lot. Just kind of showed up and played video games.
Well, man, another question I have for you is I want to know, like, what advice would you give to someone who's looking to either become a journalist or a esports commentator, or I mean, hell, if someone wants to get into IT, like, what advice would you give them?
Everything except for the IT, start now. Don't wait. Don't say, "Oh, I just this idea is not good enough yet." Start now. And so you see the canvases. I'm going to point them out again. There's a giant one over on this wall. I'm not moving the webcam because I'll never get it back into this slot again. Um, those didn't materialize out of thin air. I have been drawing my entire life to get to the point where I am today, and there's still going to my work still hilariously pales in comparison. I mean, I'm a writer f- first before anything else, but it, you it doesn't matter how good or bad the thing that you've made right now is. What matters is what you learn from it, and how good you can make the next piece. You should always be thinking ahead to, I've done this with this thing, it's over, it's in the past, I'm moving on. This if I didn't have to do sorry, if I didn't have to do advertising for this thing right here, I wouldn't be looking at it every day, seemingly for the rest of my life. That's just the way it feels right now because that's just been my life at the moment. Um, but I would like I'm already writing other things. I would be writing other things more often because of that. It's just the fact that this is my job now, so I have to be the annoying dude that has to sell himself everywhere he goes. Um, but you should always worry more about learning than you should about how good or bad something is. If I'm going to go back to The Room because everyone knows the disaster piece that thing was. If Tommy Wiseau comes out tomorrow with the greatest movie that has ever been made, it's like Stanley Kubrick just like is resurrected because of how beautiful this movie that Tommy Wiseau made is, then no one's going to talk about The Room anymore. So you understand, right? Like The Room will be a cliff note in his history, and right now people only know him because of The Room, pretty much, or any other like venture that he's tried to make out of The Room. So yeah, like if just always look forward to your next project. That's the best advice I can give. And if you're like really early, if you haven't written a letter to paper, which is impressive in 2019, I should say. But it's still never too early to start. Start consuming the media that you want to get into. Uh, like even if you don't like it, like that bookshelf over there. I don't like all those books. There's some books in there that if we could turn a podcast into me just shitting on some of those books. But like even reading those books that I didn't like was a valuable experience. Playing fighting games that I didn't like was a valuable experience. I didn't like playing Street Fighter V when it first came out, but I still learned something invaluable from that game, be it like from not pressing buttons and getting crush countered for the entirety of my life bar or what have you. The value of a jab as an anti-air. Like you can always learn something new from a experience regardless of whether or not it's an experience you ever want to have again.
Indeed, indeed. Well, man, I want to thank you for taking time to come on the show. And folks who are listening or watching when this goes up, we were having some technical difficulties. I was having issues on my end, and Discord and Hangouts were just being a nightmare for us.
Hey, I appreciate you having me, man. I really do. I love what you do. Keep doing it and get some more FGC peeps in there. Also, oh my
I'm trying.
I noticed also that you do DC Douglas. I can't believe I'm like talking to you like you're a waiter, like I'm actually ordering something off the menu. But now that you're doing voice actors, could you get DC Douglas on the show? Because he just did Kira on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and I just want you to ask him about that experience for about 2 hours. Just that. Don't ask him anything else. I know he's Wesker, but that's not relevant to me. And I'm very selfish. That's all I'm saying. Really.
I mean, if I could get DC on here, I will definitely reach out to him. Like, I'm always welcome to have anyone on the show. I'm really trying to get more FGC people on. I mean, I think the last person I had on that was FGC was Justin Wong,
Mhm.
and yeah, it's just if they're willing to come on. Like, if you guys want to come on the show, I'm more than willing.
Reach out to Mekel. He's a cool guy, and he put up with me crashing every single internet service on the face of the earth. So, I mean, if he can do that, he can do anything. I promise. But yeah,
All
thank you
right,
very
well, man, tell everyone again where they can find you and some upcoming projects again, and also when are we going to see you out here in Hawaii? We'd love to see you in our local scene out here.
Man, it's not good. You're really not twisting my arm when you say please come to Hawaii, because trust me, that's definitely a place I want to go. So I'm Millard Crow, aka Crow SpaceBoy. You can find my work at Amazon when you search for Millard Crow and the Next Great Deity, my new book. Mirrored here because I can't figure out webcams, but you heard the words, the Next Great Deity. It's a theological thriller. You can also find me on Twitch. I stream uh, almost every single night, Sunday through I switched my schedule. See, that's the thing. You can't switch your schedule. I just defaulted into the old pattern. Monday through Thursday, and then Saturday. I had stuff I needed to do on Friday. That's why I switched it around. This is real. This I drifted. I apologize. But yeah, you can also find me on Twitter. Crow Croters. I'm really sorry for that name. I made a mistake when I made it, and I deeply regret it. CROWCROWTERS. It's bad. I know. You don't have to tell me. And Crow Space Boy on Twitch. And I think I've said everything, but I could just waste another 5 minutes saying all the social media that I'm on. That's all. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, and people, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. When this is up, you'll be able to catch this episode on youtube.com/Mekel Kasanova. You'll also be able to catch us. We're on iTunes, Google Play Music, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Spotify. We're coming soon to iHeartRadio, Podcast One, also on Spreaker, and we're coming soon whenever they clear it. It's
Them
I'm just waiting for them. It really is. It really is. I could go on a whole rant about podcasting, dealing with corporations, but we're coming soon to a Sirius XM radio. I've been saying coming soon for the last 3 months. Eventually, we will be coming soon. But yeah, just check out, look for us, the Casanova Podcast. You can also find links to everything on mekelcasanova.com. But man, this has been a phenomenal episode. I really need to have you back on because I want to delve into Twitch, like talking about Twitch and other stuff that you're working on, that you're into. Man, I feel like we just peeled one layer of the onion, and there's so much more we can go into.
Can I be a monster and specifically request? Yeah, definitely have me on after that Sirius XM thing goes through. I would love to have my name all over Sirius XM.
It's as good as done.
That's so scummy of me to say that, but that's just me. Sorry, that's the lie.
Oh man, thank you so much, Millard, for coming on the show. It was an honor having you on. I know we've been talking about this for months now, I feel like.
Yeah, that's one of the unfortunate things about just like making a thing, is that it consumes your time, and then suddenly like you're just on hold. Like so much of this has been just me waiting for things to clear. Like you're going through a Sirius XM. I know what you are going through. I've gone through with it with every company that is involved in making a book, it seems like.
Yeah, it's a process. It's just you think it's as simple as, hey, here's my RSS feed. Go ahead, you can upload it. Like, no, you got to have this many listeners. You've got to have this many people, this many plays, this many subscribers, this many this. I'm like, oh my God. Let me just put this on SoundCloud and be done with it.
Yeah, someone, when I first started writing, someone was like, yeah, just throw your book up on Amazon. It's that easy, right? And I have an essay for them. I'm going to find that person, and I'm going to let them know, you lied to me? It's not that easy.
Oh man. All right. Well, I guess this is a wrap. Millard, stay around a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and end the podcast. But thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe on the YouTube channel. And if you're listening to this podcast on any of the outlets, make sure you leave a review and tell us what you like and what you didn't like. And with that being said, we will catch you on the next episode of the Casanova Podcast. See you guys later. Did you enjoy this episode of the Casanova Podcast? Well, I hope you did. And if you did, please make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. And let us know what we can improve upon, what you liked, what you didn't like, and all that good stuff. And just make sure you always have a good time. That being said, this is your boy Mekel Kasanova, Hawaii's favorite YouTuber. I am signing out, and I'll catch you on the next episode.